This is Diana Kim, Criminal Justice Librarian. I'd like to welcome you back to the fifth and final part of the Developing a Search Strategy series, Applying Limiters. What are your goals? At the end of this video, you will know how to use limiters to manage the number of results you retrieve in the databases and save and manage your results. So without further ado, we're going to go right into a demonstration at library.shsu.edu. And to save a little bit of time, I've already entered our search in our CJ abstracts databases and the other ones that we talked about in the previous videos. And you'll see here that we have a whopping 2,554 results, which is much, much more than the average person could manage. So what can we do about that? Well, we can apply limiters. So a little bit about what a limiter is. First of all, you'll see on the left-hand side here where it says limit to, excuse me, limit to, we have some options here. What a limiter does is exactly what it kind of sounds like. It limits the number of search results that we have available to us. So when we do a search like this in our databases, we have a huge list of pretty much everything that that database has to offer about that subject. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the library specifically has access to each one of those in full text form. What I mean by that is this. Imagine having a subscription to any kind of publication, for example, Rolling Stone magazine. In order for you to receive that, you have to pay a subscription fee. And because of that, the publisher will either send you a physical copy of that magazine, or they'll give you some sort of online access so that you can read it there. The same is true for our library databases. If the library has not paid for a subscription to the journal that that particular article lives in, then we as patrons will not have the ability to read it in full text form. And that's simply because there are so many thousands of journals and articles out there that it's just impossible for academic institutions to subscribe to everything. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you couldn't get it in another way. We have a wonderful interlibrary loan department that you can work through to get those articles that we at SHSU don't have access to from other libraries. So you can still get the articles that you need if there are some out there that we don't have full access to. You just have to take that other step. But if you want to eliminate that and only bring up in the databases those articles that you have full text access to, you can apply our limiters to reduce that number and make sure that everything that you see, you can read. And all you have to do is go ahead and click this full text button here, and you'll see the computer is automatically updating and eliminating those that aren't full text. So now we have 2,190 results, still a large number, but a little bit less than we had before. Another limiter that that many folks use is this scholarly peer-reviewed journals limiter. Many times a professor will say that you can only use academic or peer-reviewed sources in your research papers. Selecting the scholarly journals limiter takes the guesswork out of trying to decide which one of the articles that you see on the screen are peer-reviewed and which ones aren't. Depending on the database that you're in, this can be quite a few, especially when you have magazines, newspapers, things of that nature in those databases. Now, CJ Abstracts is one that's primarily scholarly anyway, so you're going to see that this is not going to eliminate many for us. But again, depending on the database you're in, it can be a huge number that are eliminated as a result of applying this limiter. So I'm going to apply that, and again, we will update. I'm going to scroll to the top. We still have 2,131, but we have one other option here, or actually a few other options, but The most popular limiters are our full text, our scholarly, peer-reviewed, and our date range. So down here in the date range, you can see the default goes all the way back to 1971. But let's say we want the most cutting-edge recent scholarship. We can enter a date that's much closer in time to the present. For example, I can put 2019 here. All I have to do is click in the result part of the screen, and we will eliminate all of those articles that are older than that particular date. And now you can see here we have only 348, a much more manageable list than what we started out with. There are some additional limiters that might be of interest to you as well. If you scroll down the screen, you'll see again here on the left-hand side, there are a few others down here. For example, if you are looking to find articles that are in a particular language, if any articles have been written in the language that you're interested in, and you click here, you will be able to select those. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. You can see here's one in Bosnian. I mean, most of them are in English, but there are a few here in other languages. So we can eliminate substantially our list and read in a particular language if we wish to do that. And then geography is another one. If you are studying, for example, the efficacy of drug treatment programs in Spain, for example, we can select the geography limiter and perhaps explore another country. If an article has been listed that those parameters apply to, you'll be able to select it from that limiter. Okay, let's go back up to the top. I'm going to switch over now to ProQuest Criminal Justice, and you'll see again I have run the search here. Our limiters again are on the left-hand side. We have our typical full text and our peer-reviewed. So for this one, it's not automatic. I have to make the selections and then scroll down just a little bit to update. And you can see here's the publication date limiter as well. I just have to hit update there. And you can see it's working on, oh, and it dumped out my full text for some reason. I'm not sure why it did that. So we'll just hit that one again and update. And it should do that. And you can see this reduced it quite a bit. It's still a lot, but again, the same procedure sort of applies in both CJ Abstracts and our ProQuest Criminal Justice. Okay, so now that we've determined or reduced our list down to full text, we have our peer-reviewed documents, we have our publication date locked in, and perhaps even a geographic region or a language. Now what do? Well, now we need to decide which one of these articles we're actually going to use for our research. And to do that, I would suggest very strongly not simply clicking on PDF full text and reading through articles, because it's very slow going. It's not a very efficient way to make those selections, and you'll waste a lot of time doing that. A better way is to click on the different articles and scroll down to the abstract. The abstract, which is down here, will provide you with a concise summary of what the article's about. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, why is that important? I find personally that there are times where when I'm looking at the title to an article, I think that that particular article is exactly on point to what I'm trying to research. But when I actually get into the abstract, there's some aspect of it that's not quite what I'm looking for. It may be the population being studied or the geographic region. It could be a number of things, but it's difficult to make that determination until I actually look at what the article is actually about, and you can't really get a firm grasp of that from just reading the title. So doing that will help you eliminate those articles that aren't exactly what you're looking for, but kind of looked like they were when you first started. Now let's switch over to our tools. Once we decide, yes, this particular article is one that I want to use in my research paper, what do I do next? Well, we have to manage or store those results. And you'll see here on the right-hand side, we have a number of tools that will allow us to do that. We can send things to a Google Drive. We can add them to a folder. And you'll see here up at the top, that sent that particular article to a folder. At the end of my session, I can click on this and email it to myself, for example. So let me do that. There we go. I can print the list or I can email it to myself, for example. But one caveat about that, if you do send things to a folder, just make sure you send it to yourself before you close your browser. Once the browser has closed, that will be gone and you won't have access to it again. So be sure you do that. You can print it, of course. If you're at the library and the computer lab, you might want a hard copy. You can email them individually to yourself if you want to do that. You can also send permalinks to yourself. A permalink is essentially a permanent link to this particular article. Be sure, however, that you choose the permalink if you're going to email or save, like for example, if you create a Word doc and just sort of drop your links into the doc. Be sure you do it with a permalink and not up here at the browser. Because that browser data is likely to change, and then when you open the link, it'll tell you that that article isn't available or it can't map you there, and you don't want to do that. So always use this permalink. Okay, and then there is, however, one other way to do this, and I'll show you that in just a second. Let's first go over to ProQuest Criminal Justice to see the differences there. Very, very similar. I choose an article, or I've chosen an article that I want to use, and I can go to this all options button here, and again, I can download, I can cite, or I'm sorry, I can email. The citation button for both of these is a way for you to copy and paste citations into your document if you wish, but I'm going to show you an even better method for not only for citing, but also for storing in just a second. So you can see here that ProQuest and the EBSCO products are all very, very similar in terms of their functionality. But before we go any further, let's go to a discussion about citation management tools. You'll see I have three little pictures here on the screen, and these are all different citation management tool products: Zotero, EndNote, and Mendeley. I'm going to demonstrate Zotero for you. I love Zotero. First of all, it's free. You can get it off the internet and you can download it right to your device. There's also a web-based version. So let's assume that you have it on your laptop, but you're at the library using the library computers in the computer lab. You can save things to the web-based version and you can sync it with your devices later on. So it's very mobile in that way. It's also free, if I didn't mention that a minute ago, and I love things that are free. EndNote also has a free product, a web-based product, and there's also a paid-for product which is much more robust. Unfortunately, I encountered a few problems with EndNote functionality and its communication with our databases last year. And those were not resolved very well by the company. Unfortunately, we were trying to do some troubleshooting, but we were having difficulties. And so I've gotten away from using EndNote, although the functionality is very similar to Zotero. And Mendeley is the same idea. This is a paid product. I believe the hard sciences use it. Don't quote me on that, but that's my understanding. And again, a paid-for product that does many of the same things that some of these other tools do. So let's talk a little bit about how Zotero works. And first, I'm not going to show you, of course, how to download it. It's very, very easy and it's self-explanatory if you just go to Zotero, and it'll tell you exactly how to install it and all that kind of stuff. So let me get out of this and go back into our search. Now, down here at the bottom of the screen, you can see there's my little Zotero icon, and I've already installed it on my computer. If I wanted to save this particular article into my Zotero account, all I have to do is go up here to this little blob and click that, and I'm going to say Save to Zotero. Here's the EBSCO host, and I'm going to have it connect. And you can see it's already going to my library where it's sending over this particular document. When I open up Zotero, you'll see lessons learned. That's the exact article. What is fantastic about this is it's a way to organize all your research. So let's say you're writing a paper today, but 2 years from now you're as a graduate student, for example. you are writing about something similar. Maybe it becomes part of a thesis that you're writing. You don't have to reinvent the wheel and research this stuff over and over again. You can have it stored in a citation management tool such as Zotero and organized in such a way that you can access it later. In addition to that, you can see on the left-hand side here, I've got an ebook use study and student tech use. That is one of them is the ebook use study is a project that I'm working on now, and the student tech project was a article that myself and a few of my colleagues wrote, was submitted and accepted. It's a peer-reviewed article. We used Zotero to combine our research for getting our lit review together and all that kind of stuff. So not only can it be a personal saving device for you, you can also use it as a collaborative tool to work with other people if you're working on a group project, for example, where you're doing group research. So it's fantastic on a number of different ways. And it's so easy to use. You can use it like, for example, in any of these databases. You can also use it in Google Scholar. I can use it on the web. If I'm doing a website, looking at websites, I can do the same, click on that same thing and send website, citations to my Zotero. I mean, it's endless what you can do with this. In addition to that, there's one other piece of functionality that I think you're really going to like, and it's when you're in Word. I'm going to back out of this because I was playing around with this earlier, and I'm not going to save that. I'm going to go into a document, and you're going to see, basically I gave you a little preview there. There's this Zotero plugin here, and if I'm writing an article, if I'm writing a research paper or an article, whatever you're writing, and I'm ready to put my citation into the document, I can use Zotero to directly import my citations into my document, which will save me a lot of time when I'm actually writing. So I just need to know the first couple of letters of the article that I want. And I go to Zotero, I hit add and edit citation. It's going to ask me what kind of citation style I'm using. And in this particular case, I'm using APA. I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to type the first couple of letters, lessons learned. Here's my article. There we go. There we go. There's our parenthetical citation. And then all I have to do is click add and edit bibliography, and I can get the entire end citation for my reference list. Now, one caveat about this is that always double check your citation guide. Make sure that your punctuation, your spelling, and all of that kind of stuff, so capitalization, your italics, things of that nature are correct. But generally speaking, it's a lot faster. It'll give you your DOI numbers and everything, and it will save you a lot of time doing it that way. And it's just like sort of a seamless importation of that information. Of course, another way to do it, like I said, you can go to this citation button and you can copy and paste into your document. The same thing is true here back at EBSCO, our EBSCO products. We can hit this cite button and you can do the same thing. And it'll just ask you what, you have to scroll down to the citation style that you want. So I could copy and go ahead and paste that in my document. But if you want a place where you can really sort of house all that information that you're acquiring for later use, I think that Zotero or any of the citation management tools are a great alternative to doing this because it'll keep it forever. And you can have as many folders as you want in your accounts with all of your information sort of organized. And you'll never have to worry about misplacing an email or a document that has links in it or any of that kind of stuff. There's nothing wrong with using the tools on the right-hand side to do that. I'm just suggesting that this is another way that you can organize your information. So it's completely up to you how you want to do it, but I just want to give you a number of different options to use. Okay, so now that we've talked about how to apply our limiters, how to use our tools to hold on to our research, and also our citation management tool options, let's do a quick knowledge check. How do I make certain all of my articles are peer-reviewed? Well, simply find and select the scholarly peer-reviewed limiter on the left-hand side of our screen. So in EBSCO, of course, it looked like that, and in ProQuest, We have that little screenshot. How can I save my articles once I have found one I want to keep? Well, we click on the article we want, make sure the abstract is in line with what we are trying to research, and then we go to ProQuest. We can use one of these functions or EBSCO in our tool list. Or, of course, we can save to Zotero by using that little blobby thing right at the top of our screen. So what have we learned in this video? Well, we now know how to use limiters to manage the number of results we retrieve in our databases, and we can effectively save and manage our results. If you have any questions about any of the content, either in this video or any of the previous ones, or about anything dealing with research or library materials or anything, please feel free to contact me. I am here to help you. This is what I do. It's never an imposition. I know some students are like worried that they're going to be bothering me or something. Please don't feel that way. This is what I do. I enjoy doing it. I love working with students. You can call me, you can email me. You'll see in Blackboard there's an appointment scheduler function. You can schedule an appointment with me, and we can do Zoom meetings, for example, where I can share my screen with you and do tutorials sort of live for you. There's just a number of ways that we can work together. So I appreciate you having your attention for these videos. I hope that you found the materials helpful. And again, any questions, absolutely contact me and I'll be here to help. I'm looking forward to working with each one of you this semester. Bye.